Hello, and welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name is Todd David Goldfinger, and here are today's top stories. Thank you so much for being with us. For almost 40 years, starting in the 1930s, as government researchers purposely let hundreds of black men die of syphilis in Alabama so they could study the disease. A foundation in New York covered funeral expenses for the deceased black men. The payments were vital to survivors of the victims in a time and place ravaged by poverty and racism. Altruistic as they might sound, the checks, $100 at most, were no simple act of charity. They were part of an almost unimaginable scheme. To get the money, widows or other loved ones had to consent to letting doctors slice open the bodies of the dead men for autopsies that would detail the ravages of a disease the victims were told was, in quotes, bad blood. Next news. The 2020 consensus questionnaire drove Scout crazy with no direct questions about sexual orientation and gender identity. It made him feel left out of the US head count. Among LGBTQ people, the census only asked about same-sex couples living together. And Scout didn't live with his partner, so to compensate, he hounded his gay cohabiting neighbors in Providence, Rhode Island to respond and provide at least some visibility for the community. In quotes, I was stalking them to fill out the census form because mine didn't make a difference, end quote, said Scout, a transgender man who uses one name. That's nice. Um, in quotes, there's no question I'm absolutely made invisible by the census, end quotes. Next, news. 2 years after accusing her former therapist of sexual abuse, she idly plugged his address into an online directory and came across an unfamiliar alias. A search of that name turned up decades-old newspaper articles about the death of a 10-year-old girl. In quotes. What's that got to do with Peter? End quotes. She wondered. A pair of obituaries she found next pointed closer to a connection. But she was still circling the perimeter of the truth. When she sat down at Public Library Computer in January 2020, on a newspaper archive site, she scrolled past several small, blurry photos until a larger one popped up. Next news. The New York Attorney General's lawsuit against the National Rifle Association is no mere witch hunt. A New York judge ruled Friday in dismissing the gun rights advocacy group's claims that the case is a political vendetta. Manhattan Judge Joel M. Cohen's decision means the nearly 2-year-long legal fight can continue. The rulings comes after mass shootings last month in New York and Texas reanimated debate over U.S. gun policy and refocused attention on the National Rifle Association, the NRA. The New York case began when James, a Democrat, filed the lawsuit that accused some top NRA executives of financial improprieties and sought to dissolve the group. The Attorney General's job includes oversight of nonprofit organizations incorporated in New York, where the NRA was chartered in the year 1871. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Thank you so much for joining us. Here's a continuation of today's top stories. The leaders of the National Governors Association said Friday they're forming a bipartisan working group to come up with recommendations to stop mass shootings following the Texas school massacre. Reaching consensus could be a tall order given that the nation's governors have been divided along partisan lines on how to approach issues of gun control and school safety. Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas, the group's chairman, and Democratic Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey, the vice chair, told the White House in a letter that they will convene a group of 6 to 10 governors with a particular focus on making schools safe. Next news. In a pair of fundraisers here on Friday, President Joe Biden urged Democratic donors to send him reinforcements on Capitol Hill to keep Republicans out of power and help dislodge his agenda from the current gridlock. In quotes, we need 2 more senators, end quotes, Biden said at the second fundraiser, a reference to Senators Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, 2 members of the Democratic caucus that he's struggled to win over. Without naming either of them, he said they're slowing up what we're able to do, end quotes. It will be difficult for Democrats to pick up any seats in this year's midterm elections, and Republicans are poised to try to retake control of Congress. Next news. A man armed with a machete once broke into Stephen Breyer's vacation home in the Caribbean and took $1,000. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had her purse snatched on a Washington street. David Scouter was assaulted by several men while jogging. Supreme Court justices have not been immune to violent crime, but this week's late-night incident at Justice Brett Kavanaugh's suburban Washington home, where authorities said a man armed with a gun and a knife threatened to kill the justice, reflects a heightened level of potential danger, not just for members of the nation's highest court, but all judges. Yikes. Next news. Thousands of protesters are expected to rally in Washington, D.C. Saturday and in separate demonstrations around the country as part of a renowned push for nationwide gun control. Motivated by a fresh surge in mass shootings from Uvalde, Texas to Buffalo, New York. Protesters say lawmakers must take note of shifting public opinion and finally enact sweeping reforms. Organizers expect the second March of Our Lives rally to draw around 50,000 demonstrators to the Washington Monument. That's far less than the original 2018 march, which filled downtown Washington with more than 200,000 people. 2018. This time, organizers are focusing on holding smaller marches at an estimated 300 different locations. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update in English. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you so much for being with us. Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and Iran's hardline president signed a 20-year cooperation agreement Saturday, a day after Maduro praised the Islamic Republic for sending badly needed fuel to his nation despite U.S. sanctions. In an interview with President Maduro after his arrival in Tehran for a two-day visit, Iranian state media reported late Friday that Maduro hailed Iran's move to send fuel tankers to his energy-hungry nation. In quotes, Tehran's delivery of oil to Caracas was a great help to the Venezuelan people, end quotes, he said. Maduro's first visit to Iran comes amid tensions across the Middle East over the collapse of Iran's nuclear deal with world powers. U.S. sanctions and rising global food prices are choking Iran's ailing economy, putting further pressure on its government and its people. Next news. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un doubled down on his arms buildup in the face of what he described as an aggravating security environment, while outside governments monitor signs of possibly imminent North Korean nuclear test explosions. Kim's comments during a major three-day political conference that wrapped up Friday didn't include any direct criticism of the United States or rival South Korea amid a prolonged deadlock in nuclear diplomacy, as it's called. Kim defended his accelerating weapons development as a rightful exercise of sovereign rights to self-defense and set forth further, in quotes, militant tasks, end quotes. to be pursued by his armed forces and military scientists, according to state-run Korean Central News Agency. The report on Saturday didn't mention any specific goals or plans regarding testing activity, including the detonation of nuclear devices. Next news, please. Family members of the sole person to be arrested in the disappearance of a British journalist and indigenous official in the Amazon said Friday that he was innocent and alleged that police were torturing him to try to force a confession. Freelance journalist Dom Phillips and indigenous official Bruno Pereira were last seen on Sunday morning in the Javari Valley, Brazil's second largest indigenous territory, which sits in an isolated area bordering Peru and Colombia. The two men were in the São Rafael community. They were returning by boat to the nearby city of Atalaia do Norte, but never arrived. Next news, please. A British newspaper says Prince Charles has criticized the government's plan to start deporting some asylum seekers to Rwanda, calling it appalling, as it is. Citing unnamed sources, the Times newspaper reported late Friday that the heir to the British throne is privately opposed to the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's policy to send people to the East African country. Shame on him. A court ruling has paved the way for the first flight under the controversial deal to leave Tuesday with more than 30 people. Britain plans to send some migrants who arrive in the United Kingdom as stowaways or in small boats back to Rwanda, where their asylum claims will then be processed. If successful, if Boris Johnson's successful, they will stay in the African country of Rwanda. Human rights groups have called the idea of Boris Johnson unworkable and inhumane. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's a continuation of today's top stories. Thank you for being with us. Oops. What happened? Okay, good. Pope Francis canceled the planned July trip to Africa on doctor's orders because of knee problems, the Vatican said Friday, dashing hopes of the faithful there and raising further questions about the health and mobility of the 85-year-old pontiff. The Vatican said the July 2nd to the 7th trip to Congo and South Sudan will be rescheduled to a later date to be determined. The visit had sought to promote peace in 2 African countries, long wrestling with deadly violence. In quotes. At the request of his doctors, and in order not to jeopardize the results of the therapy that he's undergoing for his knee, the Holy Father has been forced to postpone with regret the apostolic journey to the Democratic Republic of Congo and to South Sudan, end quotes, the Vatican said. Next news. Justin Bieber says a rare disorder that paralyzed half of the superstar performer's face is the reason behind his tour postponement. The multi-Grammy winner is suffering from what is called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, he said in video he posted Friday on Instagram. The syndrome causes facial paralysis and affects nerves in the face through a shingles outbreak, if you know what that is. Bieber's post comes after he canceled his shows in Toronto and Washington, D.C. The singer demonstrated in the video that he could barely move one side of his face, calling the ailment pretty serious. For those frustrated by my cancellations of the next shows, I'm just physically, obviously not capable of doing them, end quotes, he said. The singer added, in quotes, my body's telling me I've got to slow down. I hope you guys understand, end quotes. It's Justin Bieber. Next news, please. He stomped his feet, waved his arms, flexed his muscles, and talked back to the crowd. And Stephen Curry also made baskets. Plenty of those too, in a demonstrative and dominating performance that was one of the best of his postseason career. Curry scored 43 points to lead the Golden State Warriors to a 107-97 victory over the Boston Celtics in Game 4 of the NBA Finals on Friday night, sending the series back to San Francisco, knotted at 2 games apiece. 2 nights after shaking off a foot injury in a Game 3 loss, the 2-time league MVP stomped and shot his way to his 3rd highest scoring total in the postseason, adding 10 rebounds and making a pair of baskets during a 10-0 fourth quarter run that turned a 4-point Boston edge into a 100-94 Golden State lead. It was the 2nd most points he's scored in the NBA Finals. Congratulations. Next news, please. There are few things that are certain in horse racing, and this isn't one of them. Rich Strike isn't going to surprise anybody in the Belmont Stakes. On Saturday, his days of anonymity are over. Such is how it works after winning the Kentucky Derby. The Triple Crown season ends Saturday with the 3rd and final jewel, the Belmont Stakes. The mile-and-a-half marathon that drew only 8 horses this year. Among them is the Derby winner after Rich Strike's connections passed on the Preakness and decided that keeping the horse on a normal training and recovery schedule was wiser than chasing the Triple Crown. He's rested. He figures to be ready, and the lasting image of his Derby win, roaring past the leaders down the stretch, in an absolute show of force will surely compel more than a few bettors, those are into betting, Saturday to figure that he will be able to do the same thing at the Belmont races. Thank you for watching. This has been the daily global English news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites. That means Facebook, Twitter if you use it, Instagram, I'm on it too, TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel you should definitely check out. We are News Channel M24. Viewers now on both network broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon, Fire TV, also all smart TV platforms, remember? Please enjoy our entertainment, our latest news and views and editorials. Our Millennium News TV apps, Millennium TV USA is on Android. Also, please tell your device to play the music of Todd Goldfinger. Also, you can Google or search Millennium News TV at millenniumtv24.com. Thank you for being with us at Millennium News TV 24. Have a great day and peace on Earth and abroad.